Today's story is titled The Sea Sings to Me and I Must Follow by ADC 1122. The link to the story is in the description below. Please enjoy. October 2nd, 1896. I'm unsure why I'm writing this. I know it is futile, but I suppose it is one final cry for help. The singing just won't end. It pierces my ears and scratches my skin. I cannot stop it. This will be my final entry before I cast myself to the sea. It wants me to go. Perhaps if I follow its voice, I may be at peace at last. The Greasley Lighthouse sits atop a sheer cliff, teetering on the edge of green pastures and the cold, watery abyss below. It was built before my time, possibly even before my grandfather's time, and stands a beacon to those traveling the treacherous waves of the North Sea. I took the opportunity of lighthouse keeper after a stroke of dumb luck, or perhaps ill fortune. I sat alone in a small pub, drowning my sorrows in booze and desperately trying to ignore my lack of stability. I was approached by a grizzled, elderly man. He looked like he was from another age, his face dirty and his beard encrusted with salt water, as if left to drift in the cold sea before dredging up decades later. He sat across from me, his yellowed eyes locking onto my own.
"Ye look like shit, lad,"
he said in a thick Scottish accent that boomed around the room. His words stung. I did not need to hear of my current condition. I was all too painfully aware as it was.
"Drinking alone, eh, son?"
Can a man not enjoy his evening alone? I replied in an attempt to seem less pitiful, though there was no denying he was correct.
"Aye, but it is rather unfortunate."
I didn't like him already, but as we spoke, I told him of my current situation, and, after clearly giving me a dozen strange looks, he gave me a proposal. He informed me that the old lighthouse was lacking a keeper. I pried, seeking to know what happened to the last keeper, but he gave me only vague answers.
"He's gone, and that's all that matters,"
he said. His eyes shifted as he said it. His boisterous voice became shallow and thin. It may be easy to see how questionable his reaction was now, not to mention how little he told me about this opportunity at the lighthouse and how suspicious it seems. But I was desperate. The following day, I met him at the foot of the towering monolith stood at the edge of the world. Its light stared at me from within the fog as I wandered blindly up the hill, Greasley Village fading away as I dove further into the mist. As the base of the tower faded into view, I saw a wide-set man in a rain jacket stood beneath the rain. The man I had met that night prior. He had introduced himself as William before I left the drunk house the night prior to walk back to my dreary home. Seemingly out of nowhere, I heard what sounded like a faint voice. I stopped in my tracks, focusing on the voice. My heart fluttered at the sound. I could not explain the sensation that consumed me. It was a woman's voice, soft and melodic. She sang a gentle song which flooded my mind. It was all I could hear, yet it was so far away. My mind was overcome with emotion. I wanted to follow the voice, but as quickly as it had started, she was gone. The sound of the downpour came back, and my heart thumped hard inside my ribs, my body aching as if I'd run for miles. What was that feeling? It wasn't lust. It was something more. Before I could ponder the matter, William called my name. My eyes snapped back to the old man stood at the base of the lighthouse. He stood with one hand rubbing his temple.
"What's the matter, lad?"
He called from the mist. I asked if he heard it too, but he said I was hearing things. He told me the sea plays tricks on those weak of mind. I silently waited for him to finish, passing off his comments as merely jabs at me for being down on my luck of stupid. Looking back, I'm unsure whether they were or not. He showed me what my job would be.
"Simply keep the lighthouse flame burning, no matter what."
After showing me the cabin at the base of the lighthouse in which I'd be living, he wandered away into the fog. This would be the final time I'd see him. I never forgot the final thing he said to me.
"Beware. The sea is a dangerous beast. She's unpredictable, unknowable even."
I took this as a warning of storms or shipwrecks, not what would come within the following weeks. As I made myself comfortable, the thought of that voice in the mist, I couldn't seem to stop thinking about that bliss, the truest pleasure I felt in that moment, and the pain I felt as it ceased. I could not explain it, no matter how I tried to understand who was singing so angelically, or why it made me feel the way I did. Somehow, I moved on after the first few days. Maybe the sea truly does play tricks on the mind. After the first few days, I had already settled into my new position. I'd wake in the early hours, walk up the hundreds of steps to the top of the tower, make sure to add more oil to the fire beneath the enormous glass eye of the light, then wait, watch, and go to bed, only to repeat the same steps the day after. It was monotonous at first, but I yearned for a sense of purpose and structure, so anything was a dream to me, even if it happened to be burning oil and staring out over the ocean. The view from the top of the lighthouse was heavenly. The waves stretched endlessly like a crystal desert, morphing and breathing like an enormous being in deep slumber. I wrote to my mother that evening. I had not seen her since I left London, abandoning my life in the family business of a small bakery to search for good fortune up north. I don't know what I was thinking. In truth, I should have stayed, but I sought to be different from my siblings. I was not content to resign to a quiet life. I wanted more, yet I did not know what the more was, and I still don't. Perhaps living off shillings, drifting between villages and drinking in my sorrow over leaving my dear mother was simply the bridge between a quiet life and the life I so desperately desired. In any case, I wrote to her about my current situation, through skirting the details of my drinking and finances. I told her of Greasley, the lighthouse, the voice of the sea, the view of another world from atop my own. As I walked back through the village after posting my letter, I could not stop thinking about that voice, that song, that feeling. I yearned to hear it again. As I sat atop the lighthouse that sunset, I held the last full bottle of booze I had left. I thought of my mother, my siblings, my late father. I thought about what they'd think of me if they could see me now. After not much thought, I cast the bottle over the railing. I heard the bottle smash into pieces on the rocks below after a harrowingly long plummet. Perhaps as a response to my actions, she returned. Before I could even comprehend the voice, my blood rushed, fading between cold and warm. My eyes blurred and sharpened in a soft, swaying rhythm. My heart raced so hard, it was as if it wished to jump from my chest into the water below. I swayed softly as the voice sang to me. The feeling was indescribable. I wanted to go. I needed to go. I stood from my chair and held the railing, peering into the sea below. The waves looked back at me, like millions of eyes locked on mine. I put one foot on the lower railing and slowly raised myself, my other leg lifting into the air. I closed my eyes and leaned forward slowly. I wanted to go. I wanted to follow her. In a sudden moment of clarity, I opened my eyes. I looked down at myself, leaning forward over the railing towards the sharp rocks below. The cold, inky waves and the sound of a voice so angelic it overtook my mind. I threw myself away from the railing, slamming harshly into the chair and falling hard to the floor. I breathed heavily, afraid of my own thoughts, my own body. Once again, that voice faded and a hurricane of pain flooded through me. My whole body cramped and I curled painfully on the floor, my skull aching and throbbing with the sharp pain, like 24 blades scraping the surface of my brain. Within a minute, the pain was gone. I laid there, staring at the clouds above as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky began to fall into darkness, now one with the abyssal expanse of the sea below. I felt trapped in the darkness, surrounded by it. That night, once I had found the strength to get back to my feet and walk down the stairs of the tower to my cabin, I hardly slept. My mind kept replaying that moment of uncomfortable excitement my body felt, and the way I stood on the precipice of my own demise. My thoughts raced. I spoke softly to myself, attempting to reassure my own sanity. I'm fine. I'm fine. The voice is gone. She isn't here now, is what I said to myself, though I was unsure in my own reassurance. Over the following days, paranoia consumed me. I was terrified of hearing her voice again. I was afraid that this time I would not be so lucky as to catch myself before I fall. I had heard tales of sirens, maidens of the deep that lure sailors to their demise. I merely shrugged them off as fairy tales. Though I have yet to see her, I know she's out there. Perhaps they weren't fairy tales at all. I kept to my duties, though much wearier of the railings at the top of the lighthouse. As much as I regret not packing my belongings and migrating to the next village over, or perhaps one much further inland, I was still yearning for adventure, or so I told myself. Maybe I was in no danger at all, I told myself, sat journaling alone at the table in the Serpent's Head, the same pub I had met William in. Perhaps she seeks to understand us, what we are, just like we would if man knew of her existence. Could I be the only one to bridge the divide between land and sea? I pondered the page for a moment, before grunting and slamming the book closed, irritated at my poor attempt to sound like a man of science, and not the pitiful vagrant I am in actuality. I went to the bar to order a drink instinctively, though my mind caught me once again, a moment away from making a mistake. Not wanting to look like a fool walking to the bar only to walk back again, I struck up a conversation with the bartender. "Do you know William?" I asked. The thin, pale man stood watching the usual drunkards drink themselves to sleep in the late afternoon.
"William? The lighthouse keeper, you must mean. You spoke to him, did you not?"
He said, bony fingers tapping the bar, his nails clinking with a sound that made my skin crawl. "Lighthouse keeper? You must be mistaken. That's me."
"You may be now,"
he said.
"But who do you think held that position before you?"
I stopped to wonder. Is that why he had been so secretive about the previous keeper? Before I could ponder any more, the man spoke up again.
"He left Greasley. No one has heard from him since."
"Do you know why?" I asked.
"He spoke of voices in the sea. The man was mad, I tell ya. Mad."
I left the Serpent's Head and solemnly wandered back to my cabin. He knew of the voice, that song, that intoxicating feeling that caused me to be mere inches from a swift descent to my death. Why? What could he have possibly stood to gain from fleeing? From not warning me, at least. I could have driven myself mad if I stewed on it any longer, but in truth, there was simply no way to know. He was gone. I was here. I planned to pack my things by morning and set off for nowhere in particular, just anywhere but here. As I wrote a final journal entry, I sat motionless for a moment. Then, in a moment of outburst I now regret, I took my journal to the top of the lighthouse and threw it into the flame. I did not want anyone to know of this voice. I did not want anyone to come in search of the song that would make them feel such exquisite pleasure or such dreadful agony. Soon, I was overcome with an overwhelming desire, a lust, an insatiable urge to go to the sea. All I could hear was this deafening, piercing sound, like a chorus of gulls from the deepest depths of the underworld. This otherworldly sound overcame me. It was all I could hear, all I could think, all I wanted, and all I loved, yet everything I despised and dreaded. Pleasure soon turned into a deep, unending pain, as if my body was being torn apart from the inside, yet I remained whole. My head pounded like a chorus of drums, a feeling as if my brain was too large for my skull and wanted to explode its way out. I fell to my knees in pain. I screamed, yet I could not hear it. I slowly made my way to the stairs, and before I could take a step, I felt an incredible urge to cast myself to the waves. I steeled myself, screaming at myself in the hope that I would listen. I do not remember what I told myself. I could not hear my own words, only the voice. Soon, its shrill cries turned to a deep, rumbling hum that vibrated my body. I collapsed, falling down the stairs of the tower. As I rose, my leg thrummed with a cold, echoing agony, and I could not walk on it. The pain was simply too much. I dragged myself to the door of the cabin. Each meter I crawled more painful than the last, and then it stopped. Not the voice, but the pain. The deep, rumbling voice still emanated from everywhere around me, yet only my leg, which I soon realized was broken, still screamed with pain. I opened the door to the cabin, pulled myself back to my one stable leg, and fell hard into a chair. This is where I write from now. The voice has yet to cease. The feeling in my head is slowly rising back to an aching agony once more. And I want to go. I need to go. She wants me to go. I must go. I see her, rising like an inky, endless beacon from the waves. Her shape, it is unknowable. Her form is incredible. Her eyes innumerable. She is unfathomable, yet so beautiful. I am cast in her shadow and her incredible presence. I must go to her. I must go to the waves. The sea sings to me, and I must follow.